Welcome back, students. Today we are going to discuss here the different sources of risk, means from where all we can get a risk. Source is nothing but a place, person or thing from which we get something or something originates, whatever. The next slide. What have we discussed in the last class? In the last class or last session, we have discussed about concept of risk and return. In that, we have discussed about systematic and unsystematic risk. So in this class, we are going to discuss about different sources of risk. Though they are quite similar, but there is a difference. The learning objectives of the chapter are common for all the sessions. Because up to 10 sessions we have the first chapter. So this is the chapter what we have. Here we are going to study about investment settings, alternative investment opportunities available, concept of measurement of risk and return. That is what we are dealing with now. Valuation of fixed income securities and bond innovations, which we are yet to study. What are the session outcomes? Once you go through this session, you will be able to explain the different sources of risk. So we are covering only one topic under this particular session. Okay, students, let us go for in-depth study of this. So students, the different sources of risk. What is risk? As we have studied in the previous session, risk is nothing but a fear of loss, or it is a threat which you are going to face from different parts or different corners or different sources. So that is what a question of source comes. Source is nothing but a person, place or thing from which something is going to originate. So here that origination is nothing but risk. So here the concept of risk is broadly classified into two categories: internal sources of risk and external sources of risk. As we have studied, internal is something which is inside the organization, which is controllable, on which you have control. What is external? External is something which is out of your reach, you are not able to control, and it is outside the organization. So here the internal factors can influence and control the physical resources and business processes that are within the organization. This includes various concepts like physical assets, manufacturing, distribution, transportation, people, money, and the efficiency with which managers can manage the organization in a profitable manner. Now, to explain it in detail and to understand it properly, we have divided these internal sources of risk into four categories. First one is employees. Employees are the individuals who are within the organization. Sometimes what happens, because of the behavior of the employees, the company's ability to provide its investors, stakeholders and all gets affected. This may be because of various reasons. It may be a personal issue, sometimes it may be an ill staff, inefficient staff, and sometimes the dishonesty of employees, union strikes, ineffective leadership or management. All these are employee. It relates to the human factor of the organization. So this can be controlled by the organization to a very great extent, of course, by providing proper facilities, by providing proper guidelines, by providing proper rules and regulations, so that the risk is avoided from this particular resource which is within our hold or within our limits. So here the next concept what we have is technology. As we all know, technology feeds on itself. It feeds on itself, and of course it keeps on changing. So what happens for an organization? Some unforeseen changes in technology, in the manufacturing process, in the delivery process, in the distribution process of different products and services, and sometimes use of some outdated operation systems, all this will have an impact on the risk. So any organization for that matter has to update its technology, see that the technology is put in a proper condition and there is no problem from the side of the technology. And even when a customer comes to the organization, he will first see about the technology. Say for example, you have customer service. How you are going to deal with this customer service? Many organizations, many companies will have different units or setups at different places, wherein if any customer calls, you can send a technician within a fraction of hours or minutes, whatever. But if such facilities are not available, then there will be a problem for the customer, and he will look for such organization where he can get all those kind of services. So here technology is also an internal factor. In certain conditions you can control and you can manage it. This also comes for external. It is partially controllable, it is partially uncontrollable. If it is within the organization, if it relates to your production, it relates to your delivery of product, and it relates to the distribution of your product, it is within your limits, so you can control. If the technology gets changed outside your organization, in the economy, in the foreign countries, then that is uncontrollable. So this has to be considered by the organization and it has to be monitored. The next one what we have is operations. When we talk of operations, it refers to nothing but the variation in the quality of the product, some poor control system for the machineries, unplanned remedial work for the product which is damaged, and sometimes damage to the asset. All these kind of concepts will come under operations. So what about this product quality? The organization can have some quality circles, a group of people who can look into the quality and update the quality or monitor the quality over a period of time. For poor control of the machinery, staff has to be fixed so that they can take care of the control system. Unplanned remedial work, you have to update your technology and see what the customer requires, and remedial work has to be done on the commodities which are damaged or which are not properly finished. So that is one internal factor what an organization has. The next important factor is computer damage or theft. Sometimes it can so happen that the data integrity of the systems may not be good, and sometimes some theft can happen because of some irresponsible, dishonest employees. That has to be avoided by the organization, and anything happens to the systems also, it has to be taken care by the organization, and everything should be put in a proper condition, and this is called as internal control. It is nothing but internal resources, of course, which are controllable by the organization. So next let us discuss about the external sources of risk. We have the external sources of risk. External sources are those which are outside the control of the organization, and these are the risks which are of course in addition to the internal sources of risk. The external sources of risk are broadly classified into the following categories. And students, let me just tell you one thing. This is similar to what we have discussed in the first sem. You might have studied in business organization and environment. Different factors of environment, internal environment and external environment. These sources of risk also quite similar to that. We have internal and external. The first one here is economic factors. In this economic factors, we have different factors which relates to the economy. So here we come across supply and demand, the inflationary conditions, the interest rates, whatever are there, the pricing pressures, and many times the change in the market pressure what is there in the economy. These are economic factors which relates to monetary situation, monetary conditions, and of course it has a very great impact on the business, because the business has to adopt all those changes and it has to go by that. The next one is natural factors. Natural factors are some unexpected contingencies or unpredictable accidents which happens in the environment. It may be an earthquake, it can be a tsunami, it can be any natural disaster. So what happens in such cases? Business has to face a threat. Not only business, every individual has to face a threat, but specifically since we are dealing with this, so we have a threat. The business may go down, there will be a lot of problems in the economy, and because of that, whatever investment decision you take, you have to be very careful about that. For example, if an earthquake occurs, what happens to the wholesalers and the retailers? The retailer may have to close his business for a very long period of time, and automatically his financial condition will be affected. And what happens to his investment? Again, it will come down. So natural factor has great influence on the this risk. The next one is political factors. In political factors, we get basically the laws and regulations, the financial affairs, and here what happens, how the government regulates, how it frames the different laws like relating to imports, exports, taxes, tariffs, okay, and other regulations. Once the government has taken some decision, it is actually divided into three parts. We have the legislative, executive, and the judiciary, what we have studied. So the legislation is there for passing the law, executive is for implementing of law, judiciary is to solve the conflicts if there is any. So these factors have influence on risk, and many times due to the laws, say for example there is a monetary policy and there is a decrease or increase in interest rate, automatically the investor will be affected. The next one is competitors. Of course, competition is one of the basic challenge what a business has to face. This competition may be internal, that is within the economy, within the industry, or it may be outside the industry, and sometimes it is outside the economy. So here competition is the basic factor which a business has to survive. Say for example, today the mobile phone industry is the most competitive, and then the data operators, they are the most competitive industry. Automobiles, there is a lot of competition. If a business has to survive, it has to update its technology and see what competitors are doing and update according to that. The next one is emergent technology. In internal sources of risk also we have discussed about technology, but there technology is something which is inside the organization. We are talking about the production technology and operations, but here this technology is outside. When people go through different aspects of research and development and come out with new technology, that has to be adopted by the business. You cannot say that I don't want to change. Technology is to change, right? It keeps on changing. It is not constant. Today you can see so many changes have come in the mobile industry. Again, I'll just give the same example. Once Nokia was one of the biggest mobile industry, okay, but today what has happened, it is nowhere in the market because it has not adopted, it is not updated its technology. So if you want to survive in the market, again you have to update the technology and go by and with the technology, without which you cannot survive in the market. And technological changes are very common, and a business should always be prepared to change itself. And now the next one is changes in environment, like malicious activities in cyberspace, pandemics, transnational crime, and man-made accidents. So the best example is what we are facing now, the pandemic, the COVID-19. What has happened to the economy? The economy has totally shattered. We are facing a different lifestyle. The one more example is if we are not able to see the students, we are going to only talk to you many times. Of course, that personal touch is not there either with the people or with the individuals. So sometimes there is some problems in the cyberspace. Crimes will be there. Sometimes there will be some problems between the different nations, and of course because of that some crimes will happen. And sometimes man-made accidents, some bomb in Bombay or some attacks from different nations on other nation, all these things will have an impact on the risk. That is one. So that is what we consider as external sources of risk. I hope you have understood this, students. Okay, now we will go for the next one, that is multiple choice questions. Financial risk is most associated with the use of equity financing by corporations, the use of debt financing by corporations, equity investment held by corporations, debt investment held by corporations. The use of debt financing by corporations, the answer is B. Which of the following represents the rate at which a company can grow from internal sources? Return on assets, sustainable growth rate, adjusted rate, return on equity. No, it is sustainable growth rate. Dash is the most important investment decision because it determines the risk return characteristic of the portfolio. Hedging, market timing, performance measurement, asset allocation. The first one, it is hedging. The main aim of portfolio is to reduce dash by diversification. It is risk, the second option. Asset allocation is procedure of scattering your assets between numerous investments to highest risk, moderate risk, lessen risk, or no risk. We always want to reduce the risk. Okay, students, we have the following references. What I have made, you too can go for this. See you in the next session, students. Thank you for your patience listening.